today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can create this stunning weather app within Flutter. Our app will have the ability for us to pass it a location, and then for that location, our app is going to display us a bunch of information. This includes the time at which the weather data was collected, the temperature at the location, a description of the weather, as well as an image of that description. And we'll also be able to show some additional metadata information for the weather, such as the maximum temperature, the minimum temperature, the relative humidity at that place, as well as the wind speed. So with this said, let's get into the video. As a side note, I just want to mention that links to all of the resources as well as a link to download the source code will be available in the video's description. So if you're interested, you can take a look at that. So let's get started. To get started, just create an empty Flutter project and then create a stateful widget class, which is going to be responsible for managing all of the UI elements as well as the logic for our weather app screen. And once you're at that point, then you and I are going to be at the same starting position. From here, the first thing that we're going to be doing is heading on over to pub.dev and actually installing the dependencies that we require. So we're going to be using the weather plugin, which is a package that uses the OpenWeather API to get the current weather status as well as weather forecasts for whatever location that we pass to it. So you're going to come to pubspec.yaml, come to the dependency section, and then under Cupertino icons, I'm going to add weather. And then after that, for formatting the datetime objects into appropriate strings, we're going to be using the intl package, which will allow us to have this functionality within our application. Once this is done, you can do command save and let Flutter pubget do its magic. And in the meantime, you can head on over to openweathermap.org. You can register for the site, or if you already have an account login, then you can come to the API keys section and generate a new API key here. Keep in mind that once you've generated the API key, it might take between 1 to 2 hours for that API key to become functional. So once it becomes functional, then you are going to be able to proceed with this tutorial. But once the API key is created, all you have to do is copy that API key, and then after this, you can come back to your Flutter code base. In your Flutter code base, what you can do is go to the lib folder and create a new file here, which I'm going to do const.dart. And then within this file is where we're going to be defining our OpenWeather API key. So I'm going to type in OpenWeather _API _key, and then I'm going to be setting this equal to a string, which is going to be my API key, and do command save. Once this is done, we can come back to our home page, and then we can focus on our build function, which for now is returning a scaffold. Since our Flutter pubget has now finished working, I'm going to give a quick test run to my application to make sure that it's working and run it on my simulator. And once it's running on the device, I'll resume the video. Welcome back, everybody. So now that our application is running, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is coming to my homepage state. And here I'm going to create a variable, which I'm going to call final weather factory, which we're going to be importing from the weather package. And I'm going to call this _WF, and I'm going to set this to an instance of weather factory. And then we have to pass it our API key, which will be our OpenWeather API key. So we need the weather factory enabled to actually get access to the weather for a specific location. Then I'm going to create a variable of type weather, which is going to be optional, and I'm going to call this _weather, and this is basically going to be a variable that is going to store information for the weather that we get from the OpenWeather API key for a specific location. Once this is done, I'm going to create the init state function for my homepage state class, and within this is where, after my superclass's init state function has been called, I'm going to be saying that WF dot, and then I'm going to say current weather by city name, and then you can pass any city here. What I'm going to be doing is passing in Philadelphia, and then after this, what you're going to do is chain a then clause, because it returns the future. So once this function call completes, then I am going to be getting the weather, which I'm going to say is going to be W. And then within this function is where I'm going to do that I'm going to call set state, and I'm going to set our weather to be equal to W, like so. So as soon as our application loads, we send a request to using our weather factory to the OpenWeather API key to get the weather for Philadelphia, and then we store this information within our weather variable. So now that we have access to this information, I'm going to come to my build function, and within my build function for the scaffold, I'm going to be saying that I'm going to define the body attribute for this, which I'm going to say is going to be a call to a function, which is going to be called. Once this is done, I'm going to come down, I'm going to say that I'm going to return a widget with this function. It's going to be called build UI, and then within this function is where we're going to be determining what UI we're going to be returning. So in the case that the weather is null, it's going to be very simple. What I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be returning a center widget, and this center widget is going to be a child, which is going to be a circular progress indicator. So in the case that our weather is empty, then we're going to be showing a circular progress indicator. And if this is not the case, then I'm going to return a sized box. And then this size box is going to have a width and a height, which I'm going to paste in. And then after this, it's going to have a child, which is going to be a column, like so. And this column is going to have an empty children's list for now. Once this is done, I'm going to do command save, and you're going to see that for now, since our weather is empty, we're seeing a circular progress indicator. But if I reload my application, it's going to call init state, and then we're not seeing the loading indicator anymore. So once this is done, the next thing that I'm going to do is that for my column, I'm going to be defining some properties, and they are going to be the main axis size, the main axis alignment, and the cross axis alignment. And then after this is done, what I'm going to be now doing is that I am going to be coming to the children's list for my column. And the first thing that we're going to be adding is a location header, which is basically going to be a text, which is going to say for what location are we displaying our weather. So then I'm going to come down and I'm going to create a function which will return a widget. This is going to be called location header, and it's going to return a widget. So what are we going to be returning for our location widget? Well, it's going to be very simple. What we'll do is that we'll return a text widget. And for this text widget, what we'll do is that we'll access the weather object, and we're going to from there access conditionally the area name. If we don't have the area name, then it's going to be an empty string like so, and do command save. And now we're seeing Philadelphia. And then to style this appropriately, I'm going to set the style property for this text to be the following. So once this is done, the next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be adding a sized box after my location header to add some distance between the next child within this list. And then after that, the next thing that we're going to be adding is going to be the date time information. So I'm going to create a function which will be called date time info. And then after this, I will come down. I'm going to have a function which will return a widget. It's going to be called date time info. And then within this function is where we're going to be creating our actual widget structure. I'm going to firstly access the date time object from the weather object. So I'm going to say that the actual collection time equals to now, and then I'm going to say underscore weather dot data, like so. So what we're basically doing is that we're accessing the actual date time object for the weather observation. And once this is done, the next thing that I'll do is that I'll return a column. This column is going to have a children's list, and this children's list is going to be empty. The first thing that I'm going to be doing to this children's list is adding a text widget. And this text widget is going to be responsible for showing the actual time at which the weather observation was collected. So to do this, I'll instantiate a date format object, like so. And this needs to be imported from the intl package. So let's do that. Then I'm going to pass it a string, which is going to define the structure in which our date time object should be parsed and then displayed on screen. So in this case, I want to show the R followed by a colon. Then I want to show the actual minutes. And then after that, I want to show AM or PM. So this is how you do it. And then after this, I'm going to do format, and I'm going to pass it the actual date time object, like so. So once this is done, you can see that now we're seeing the actual time being displayed. Then what I'll do is that I'm going to basically define the styling for this. So I'm going to set the style attribute for this to be the following. Once this is done, I'm going to add a size box to add some distance between the next element in our list. And then after this, I'm going to be adding a row element. This row is going to have a children's list, and we'll define that children's list in a bit. But the first thing that I'm going to be doing is defining the main axis alignment, the main axis size, and the cross axis alignment as follows. Then the children here is going to be the same text widget that we have defined here using our date format. So I'll copy and paste it in. But this time what I'm going to be doing is that instead of showing the actual time, what I want to show is the actual day. So for that, what we do is we put in 4 E's and do command save, and now it's showing us the actual day at which this weather observation was collected. Then after this, I'm going to update the styling property for this to the following and do command save. So now we're seeing that it's 7:30 p.m. and it's Monday when the weather observation data was collected. Then finally, what I'll do is that I am going to be copying this text. I'm going to be pasting it again, and this time what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to create a string. And in this string, I'm going to add a space or 2 spaces. Then I'm going to say that I'm going to interpolate the date format object within the string. And the date format object is going to be responsible for showing the date, following that the month, and then following that the year, like so. And then similar to before, I'm going to say that now I'm going to call format, and then I'm going to pass it now, like so. And then after this, I'll do command save. And as you can see, now it's showing us 30/13/2023, which is the date at which this observation was collected. Then I'll update the style property for this, do command save, and there we go. That's working as intended. So now that we're showing the actual time at which our weather data was collected, we can move on to the next step, which is to actually show the icon of the actual weather description. So to do that, what I'll do is that I'll come back to my children's list for the actual main column within my application, within our build UI function. I'm going to be adding a sized box after this. And then after that, I'm going to be calling a function which is going to be called the weather icon. And as the name suggests, it's going to be responsible for rendering the weather icon. So I'm going to come down to the bottom of my class. I'm going to create a new function which will return a widget. It's going to be called the weather icon. And then this function will be responsible for rendering the weather icon. So what I'm going to do within this function is that I'm going to be returning a column first. So let's do that. Then for this column, it's going to have a children's list, and we'll come back to the children in just a bit. Then I'm going to define the main axis size, the main axis alignment, and the cross axis alignment for this column. And then after this, we are going to be defining the first child for this column, which is going to be a container. This container is going to have a decoration property, which is going to be of type box decoration. Then for this, it's going to have an image, which is going to be of type decoration image. And then this decoration image is going to have the network image as its property. And then here I'm going to say that we're going to pass a URL to our network image. So what is the URL going to be? Well, it's going to be the following. We're going to have the specific URL firstly, which is openweathermap.org/image/WN/. And then we're basically going to be adding the actual icon for which we want to display on screen. So that is going to be interpolated into the string. So I'm going to access the weather object that we have. And then from there, I'm going to say that we're going to access the weather icon. And then once we have the weather icon, after this, I'm going to add 4x to actually specify the size for the PNG that I want to get. And then finally, after that, I'm going to do .png and do command save. Once this is done, you're going to notice that the image is not shown. And the reason for that is because we haven't defined a specific size for our container. So for this container, I'm now going to define a specific height. And with this done, you can see that now we're seeing the actual icon for our weather. Once this is done, the last thing that I'm going to be doing is actually adding a text after our container, which is going to be responsible for displaying the actual description for our weather. So I'm going to do weather, then from here, weather description. And if we don't have it, then it's just going to be empty. And then following that, I will do command save. And now you can see that it's saying mist as the weather description. Then I'll actually define the styling for this text by just copying and pasting it in, since it's very simple. And there we go. So once this is done, the next thing that I want to do is that I want to have a function which is responsible for basically displaying the temperature at our current location. So for that, we'll do the same thing. I'll come back to my build UI function. And then after my weather icon, I'm going to be adding a sized box with a specific height. And then after that, I'm going to be calling a function which will be responsible for displaying the current temperature. Then similar to this, I will come to the bottom of my actual class. And here I'm going to be creating a function which will return a widget. It's going to be called current temp. And that's pretty much it. That this function is going to be responsible for basically rendering a text widget. And this text widget will be responsible for showcasing the actual temperature at the location. So for this, again, I will define a string. The string is going to have a value interpolated in it, which is going to be weather.temperature and then .Celsius, since I want to show the actual temperature in Celsius, like so. And if I do command save and actually show you guys the temperature, you're seeing that the temperature is being showed up to a lot of decimal points. So to limit this, what I'll do is that I'll chain a call to this called toString as fixed. And here I'm going to say 0, like so. And then I'm going to add a optional sign here as well and do command save. So now it's only going to show us the actual temperature at the location as a whole number. And then after this, what I'll do is that I'm going to add the degree sign space C and do command save, and there we go, we're seeing 14 degrees Celsius being displayed. Then just to update the styling for this, I'll define the styling for this text, and there you go. Now it's showing us that at Philadelphia right now it's 14 degrees Celsius. So finally, now we're going to be creating the section which displays the extra information for the weather at our specific location. So for that, it's going to be pretty similar as well. Firstly, what we'll do is that we'll come back to our column, and after the current temp, I'm going to be adding a size box. And then after that size box, I'm going to have a call to a function called extra info. Then I will come back to the bottom of my class. Here I will create a function which will return a widget called extra info, like so. Then what I'm going to be doing within this function is firstly determining the information that we're going to be showing. So we're basically going to have a container which is going to have some styling applied to it. And then within this container, we're going to have a column and then a row within it and then another row within it. And it'll become actually much clearer as I start creating it. So first things first, let's create the container and actually add some styling to it. So I'm going to say that we're going to be returning a container. This container is going to have a height and a width. So let's add those like so. And then once I've defined the height and the width, I'm going to define the decoration property for this, which is going to be box decoration. Then I'm going to say that the color here is going to be colors.d purple accent. And then after this, I'm going to be defining the border radius for this. And I'm going to say that the border radius is going to be border radius.circular. And then I'm going to give it a radius of 20, like so. Once this is done, we can move on to the next step, which is to add some padding to our actual container. So I'm going to add that after the decoration property. And then finally, we can actually talk about the actual children that are going to reside within this container. So the child for this container is going to be a column. So let's quickly define that. Then the column is going to have a children's list, which for now is going to be empty. Then we're going to define the main axis and the cross axis alignment for our column. So for this column, the main axis alignment is spaced evenly, and then the cross axis alignment is center. And then the children for this is going to be actually a row. And then this row is going to have a children's property as well. For my row, I'm going to define the main axis size, the main axis alignment, and the cross axis alignment like so. So it's main axis size max, cross axis alignment center, and main axis alignment spaced evenly. And then the children here is going to be a text widget. And the text is basically going to be the maximum weather. So I'm going to say the maximum temperature is going to be max colon, then a space, and then I'm going to interpolate underscore weather, and then dot, I'm going to say temp max dot Celsius, and then I'm going to say dot toString as fixed 0. And then after this, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to add a degree sign and then space Celsius and do command save. And now you can see that it's showing us the max temperature is going to be 15 degrees centigrade. Then I'm going to be copying the styling for this and pasting it in to the text so that we change the color of the text to be white and the font size to be 15. Then what I'll do is that I'll copy this text and I'm going to paste it in again. And this time I'm going to say what the minimum temperature is going to be weather.temp min, like so. And now the minimum temperature is being shown as 11 degrees centigrade. Once this is done, what I'll do is that I'll copy this row, so the whole row, and I'm going to add the row again below it, like so. So our column, let me just show you, is going to have one row which contains our maximum temperature and minimum temperature, and then another row which basically showcases some other information regarding the actual wind speed. So for this, what I'll do is that here for the text, I'm going to say what the wind speed is, and then I'm going to say that the wind speed is going to be weather, and then dot wind speed, like so, and do command save. And then after this, I'm going to say that the wind speed here is going to be actually in meters per second. And then finally, we are going to be showing the humidity. So for humidity, I'll say humidity is weather dot, and then I'll remove this and I'm going to say humidity, like so, toString as fixed, and then humidity is in percentage, like so, and do command save. And now we're seeing that the humidity is 90%, the wind is almost still, so 0 meters per second. The maximum temperature at this location is going to be 15 degrees centigrade. The minimum is going to be 11 degrees centigrade, and that's pretty much it. So with this, our application is now complete. The last thing that I'm going to be showing you guys that you can easily go and change the actual city for which you're pulling the weather information for, and it's going to update it here. So let's use London instead of Philadelphia. Let's do command save. Let's restart our application. And we're going to be seeing now that at London, it's showing us that it's overcast clouds, wind is at 2 meters per second, humidity 83, and maximum temperature is 16 degrees centigrade, minimum is 11, and the icon is updating. And then I can change this to something else as well. Let's just say that I am going to be changing this to now Madrid, and do command save. And if I reload my application, then you're going to be seeing that at Madrid, it's saying it's 15 degrees centigrade. And that's pretty much it for today's tutorial. If you enjoyed the tutorial, then please don't forget to leave a like on my video as well as subscribe to my channel so that you get notified every time I release a new video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then please don't forget to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer them for you. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.